Author Evelyn Ann Casey joins us on WRCO talking about a new book. We're going to introduce you to that in just a little bit. But first of all, Evelyn, let's ask you a little bit about your background.
Okay, well, how did I become a writer?
Yes.
It's a long story, but we'll start with the fact that I simply enjoyed writing. I've always enjoyed writing, doing crossword puzzles, that sort of thing. I have actually published a number of poems and short stories, and when I lived in Milwaukee, I got involved with Irish Fest and wrote plays based on Irish folklore that were performed there for about 5 years. Almost studied journalism. You would think, with my love of writing, that's what I would have done. But I didn't know any journalists. And so I took the path that many women did in the 70s when I was in college. My options were either teacher or nurse. And I became a teacher. But an opportunity to do a year in New York at WNET kind of reignited all of that desire to do writing. And so I changed my trajectory when I got back to the Midwest, and I became an advocate for education, actually working for some educational associations, where I got to do a lot of writing, not creative writing, but it was good practice in the craft. So eventually I ended up in managing outreach programs for UW-Madison. And when I retired, I said, you know what? I'm going to spend all my time writing.
Doing what you love.
For creative writing. So I got involved with workshops and programs and just jumped into it and have not looked back since.
All that background and all that knowledge probably helps you in your field now, doesn't it?
Well, actually, the short stint in New York gave me a whole chapter for the book.
Oh, okay. You grew up in Chicago, I understand.
I did.
And were some of those experiences inspiring for your debut novel, Candlewood?
It actually was. I never intended to write about this, but I grew up in a very Irish Catholic neighborhood, and everything revolved around the church and the pubs, to be fair. But in those days, it was a very close-knit neighborhood, and my parents and everybody knew more than a few of the priests and nuns from before they entered religious life. One of those priests was like an uncle to me. And along the way, he was in his 40s, maybe even approaching 50, when he fell in love. Never expected it to happen. He'd taken the vows. He was faithful, but there it was. And as you and probably a lot of your listeners know, if they know anything about the Catholic Church, they know that there was a big exodus of priests and nuns leaving the church in the 60s and 70s. He, however, was also very involved in the civil rights movement. And ultimately, he and his woman friend, who I got to know a little bit too, she's a wonderful woman, they make a cameo appearance in the book. They both passed. But at any rate, they decided to keep their relationship under the radar, which was not unknown at the time, probably not unknown today. But, in those days, it was don't ask, don't tell. Mm-hmm. My book really ended up retracing those times. It took me about at least 8 years with a lot of stops and starts in between because I didn't want it to be a rant. But I did want it to be true. And so very fictionalized, but it does expose the fact that more priests, in fact, are involved in unhealthy, even predatory relationships with adult women than with children. And yet, whether it's these kinds of non-consensual relationships or, abuse with minors, somehow the church is only now very um, painfully, coming to terms with those things. So, my background informed me a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
On the writing of this book.
Right. It's set in St. Croix Valley. Why is the setting for the book? Is that like a small town area, or how does that work?
I was first got to know the St. Croix Valley through a roommate who lived near Minneapolis. And since it's practically in your backyard, what is it, about an hour from Richland Center?
Yeah, a little bit over an hour, right?
Yeah. So I don't need to tell you or your listeners, what a gorgeous place it is. So when I was thinking about where the story should take place, I very much liked the idea of contrast between such a natural, pure, serene, beautiful place and then the undercurrent of not such pure things happening just below the surface. And then, of course, there's the river and the waterfalls. And water is such a rich metaphor for things in the Bible, for cleansing and healing. And, as I mentioned, I really didn't want the book to be a rant, but rather a story of healing and coming through, kind of turbulence to get to a better place.
How did you come up with the name Candlewood?
Yeah, that's interesting. I had like 3 different names before I settled on this one, but it was the book opens with a vigil candle flickering on an altar. And my main character kind of saying, "Come on, God, what's to become of my life?" She's sort of at 6s and 7s. As we go along, she of course encounters many obstacles. Just as one of the people in my critique group said, she just can't catch a break, can she? And it seems that way. So, in a certain way, it's kind of like she's carrying the wooden cross. There we have the candle and the wood. But by the end, much light has been shed on many things. And I won't tell you what happens, how the name Candlewood actually gets spoken, towards the end, but it does nicely name her future.
Listeners could recall the Thornbirds, the miniseries, and of course the book as well. I guess you're aware of that. Is there a reference in the book for that?
There's a nod, only in that her name is Meg, whereas I think it was Maggie in the book. So her name is Meg, so there's a little nod to that. It's definitely the story of forbidden love, which is always fascinating, and it kind of continues to surprise me, how much interest there is in, Catholic things, like the conclave, the naming of the new pope, the conclave, the book, and then the real conclave that just named Pope Leo, who, by the way, is from my hometown of Chicago. Mm-hmm. And, there's just sort of a fascination with this institution that has so many rules and strictures and is so ancient and full of ritual and mystery and so forth. And so, whereas in the Thornbirds, I would say that's really more a story of revenge. That's not my story, but the setup of, it really is a much bigger deal to fall in love with a priest than with a married man, because, the priest is just wrapped up in this whole other thing. But the idea that even there in Thornbirds, she couldn't speak her love. She couldn't talk about it. He couldn't. He wrestled with the, should I stay? Should I go? And in some ways, my characters also wrestle with that. It takes a long time for Meg, my character, to find her voice. In Thornbirds, she doesn't really find her voice until, he's having a heart attack, and at the very end. Mm-hmm. And then it's, just stick a knife in him. Really it's to express her own grief. But, to be fair. So yeah, there's overlap. And I'd say if people, got into and enjoyed the story of the Thornbirds and, that sort of wrestling with who you are, what your society means to you, what rules you're going to follow, which you're going to set aside, they'll enjoy my book.
Well, I have to ask, too, do you still have family members that are practicing Catholics?
I do, and I don't. And I myself lapsed for many years. It was, there's been so much, I think I used the word turbulence before, and there continues to be turbulence in the church about so many things. And finally, as my husband and I, who, by the way, was not a priest. Anyway, everybody always asks that, so I just get that out of the way. But it's, there were some family members who passed away, and at their funerals, I have to credit the priests who said the funeral masses for family members, whether they were in good stead with the church or not. They were kind. They were compassionate. They were, showed respect to, our family in all its diversity, and that led me to give the church a second chance. And so I've gone back to Mass and myself these days, and you got to take the good with the bad.
Yeah, I was just wondering how other family members what they thought of your book. It's one thing about the critics, but what about your family?
I haven't told all my family about it.
Okay.
But the ones I have shown it to, and they, they're like, first they didn't know that I had it in me to write this book, or certainly this kind of book. But, they all come back and say, oh my God, Kate, or oh my God, Evelyn, you really named it. They have a nickname for me. They say, geez, Evelyn, you really nailed it. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Do you think your book raises the importance of women's voices?
Yes. Not, what can I say, it doesn't beat you over the head with it. But readers will see Meg going from feeling like, and from not saying anything because she doesn't think she can, that it will reflect most badly on her rather than on, the men involved. She keeps quiet. She doesn't even tell her best friend what's going on. It's like, taboo, and I'm not going to put myself there. Gradually, with her, first with, her love interest, with the priest, you see her at first wanting to give him lots of space, lots of time, like it's all his decision, not, that she's not an equal partner in this decision. And then you kind of move along and see that, she's starting to speak up. She's starting to question him. And finally she's starting to question the church. And she's starting to question the people around her. And, we see that even today, all too often women feel like they have to be nice, play nice, not say that anything's wrong. They have to find a way to make things work, that it's all on them. I think that they'll be able to relate to that aspect of finding your voice, becoming yourself, in my book.
The book is called Candlewood. Where can listeners pick up a copy?
They can pick up a copy pretty much wherever they like to buy books. If they have a favorite bookstore, they can order it online at bookshop.org. Or I always encourage people to visit their local bookstore, and if it's not in stock, they can order it for them. Same with Barnes & Noble. And, of course, it's on Amazon, and it's also available in a Kindle version, if they enjoy reading that way. Also, to make it easy, I do have direct links to all these places on my website, which is EvelynAnnCasey.com.
All right. Casey spelled with a C?
Yes.
All right. We hope people will look that up. Thanks for being our guest. We appreciate it, and good luck to you. You have another book in the hopper, do you?
I am working on something. I am trying to redeem one of the characters in my book.
Oh, a sequel then.
It could be.
Yeah, wonderful.
So we'll see how that's going. I'm just getting back into it now.
Awesome. Evelyn Ann Casey, our guest on WRCO's Morning Show.